This is Havana, and you are with us for another quarantine chat with the Kamikaze team. And this time, we are excited to be talking to two very prolific creatives. TaLynn Kel is an essayist. She's the author of Breaking Normal and Still Breaking Normal. She's a very prolific cosplayer and has been featured on NBC, Bleeding Cool, Rashly, Brit & Co., as well as a whole host of other podcasts and websites. Angael Davis, also known as Star Jellygram, is the colorist for Is Nana the Were-Spider. She's also been the artist on Bingo Love by T. Franklin and their Horizon anthology, No More Villains, and as well as Viz Media's Bravest Warriors, The Search for Catbug, and so much more. They are working on our upcoming short story for the Short Circuit Anthology, Coyote Run. So welcome, you guys.
I'm so excited about this comic, you guys. I can't even.
I know. I'm excited too. First of all, how are you both today?
Well, I'm doing really good today, actually.
That's good.
Yeah.
How about you, TaLynn?
Busy, just busy. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I mean, I'm amazed that we're in the pandemic and I'm still like struggling to juggle stuff. I can't even do that.
This is the general consensus among us, I think.
Definitely. So on that topic, what has been keeping you occupied during the pandemic?
I think obviously like the freelance stuff that I'm working on, some projects that I've been doing, yeah, like mostly freelance as well as working on my own graphic novel, and then spending a lot of time like reading and playing video games.
Nice.
Like Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alan's doing that too.
Nook has been mining us for bells.
Yes.
I'm free of him. Now I own the island.
Yes, exactly.
How about you?
Right now, it's been a lot of like personal stuff, like family stuff. So external to here, like my in-laws got COVID, but apparently they say that they're fine after 4 days and have been going out and doing stuff. So I'm like, all right, y'all,
Wait,
go ahead. Yes, 4 days.
Like you're just like, what?
They went to the store. They have gone shopping repeatedly. I'm like, y'all tested positive last week. You're supposed to stay in the house for like 14 days. What are y'all doing? We feel fine.
Oh,
well, that makes everything better. Okay.
Right.
Great. We're good now.
God.
And my mom had surgery, and I'm like, it went really well, but it was still everything leading up to it was like, oh my God, what are we doing? And this is, and we're in Georgia, and people don't even think COVID is real, and you got to be in the hospital, and how are we going to handle all this? And are you going to be fine? I mean, like you 80? This is a big deal.
Oh my God!
I know, that's insane. But
and then the lease of her apartment ended, so I've been cleaning out her stuff. Like, it's just been a lot.
Yeah.
And then I'm, taking selfies for no good reason. So, I'm living my best life.
Your selfies are amazing, though. They give me life every day.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even explain it anymore. I'm just like, I got to fill time. But actually, that's like a self-love project. That's just a project for me to be like, hey, you're awesome. Keep being awesome. But,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds necessary.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm thinking. I'm just like, that's a good idea.
Right. And I know both of you are heavily involved as creators at conventions. Which conventions are you missing the most this year?
For me, I like going to MomoCon a lot, so I'm missing that one.
That one hit me so bad back in May.
Yeah.
And I know that I've done AWA a lot, so that one's kind of missing. And last year was my very first time going to Dragon Con, even though I didn't table that year. I was actually going because like a week before I found out that my absolute favorite author, Brandon Sanderson, was going to be there, and I was like, I need to meet him. Oh my God. and I cried when I met him. But
Aw.
I was like, this year, I think I want to try and, have a table. It's big, but maybe I could do it. And then they were like, pandemic. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll be all right.
That's an old country style song. The stars are stacked against you, girl. Get back in bed.
No. Just like, excuse me, I'm just gonna.
It's been a weird year for conventions. Like I had made a decision last year that I was not giving money to any conventions that weren't really supporting, Black creators and Black, having guests and actually promoting like inclusion, like actively doing it and not like just that little placeholder. We just have this because we want to say that we do it, but not really do it. So if I wasn't going to be either an attending professional or a guest at DragonCon, I wasn't going to go to DragonCon this year, and I also didn't go last year because I'm not paying them anymore. MomoCon likes me, so they let me come whatever now. But I didn't have any panels approved for MomoCon this year, so I was like, well, this is interesting. What am I going to do there if I don't have a panel? I mean, hang out or some shit? Who does that?
I know. For me, it's like I'm at a con. What do you do at a con if you're not working?
I know. That's how I feel. Like sometimes, like I'll be working, and then like my friends and my husband will be like, "You should get up and go, do something." And I'm just like, "What? Like what?"
Right.
What?
I should build a network.
I need.
MomoCon's wild for us that way because like Havana and Carrie are both like part of the mod squad, or like Carrie, you lead the mod squad, and like on top of that, we're also doing the panels and running our own table and going onto other people's panels. So it's just this like turbine of activity.
It's this.
I think the last time I basically ducked out. I was like, look, I'm not going to be part of the mod squad this time. I'm just going to fly this table. Thank you.
It's really bad when we're at MomoCon and everybody's like, "It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you all weekend," and I'm like, "You're never at your table," and I'm just like, "Cause I'm doing this and this and this."
Yeah. It's
I'll keep that in mind for next year, because then I can volunteer with you guys.
Mm.
I'm never available.
Yes, do that, and then we can have you guys sign copies of the books.
Oh, that would be awesome.
that would be cool. Yes, it's a plan. We're doing it. But yeah, no, I do miss seeing everyone at conventions, and I miss it so much. So I wanted to ask, first of all, how do both of you know each other?
Oh my gosh, it's almost unfair. So, up till about 10 minutes ago, I thought that I did not know her at all. And that the first time that she was reaching out to me to work on this Kamikaze short story. And then she told me that she had interviewed me like 2 years ago. And I was like, and then instantly I recognized your face and I was like, oh my God, how can I forget? So yeah, that's how we know each other, or that's how she knew we knew each other.
Yeah. It cracks me up because I'm in cosplay usually when I interview people.
Yeah, I remember
recognize
you were in
me.
like an elaborate cosplay.
They don't recognize me when I'm out of it, and so I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, no, this is real. There was one point where you came up to our table dressed as Thanos, and I did not know. And I was just like, "Look, TaLynn, I can't recognize you when you have all these prosthetics and you're purple."
there was a prosthetic. I will give you that. I did change the shape of my face for that costume. But I don't usually do that. That one was an exception.
Yeah. I don't think you didn't have prosthetics for the one.
I don't know what I had on.
Yeah, I know. I feel like you had. I don't know if it was steampunk or if it. Like I remember a dress. I remember a hat.
Oh, it was the one with the fawn with the antlers.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
the afro.
That one.
Okay.
That one's cute.
That one is
Yeah.
Also,
It was really cute.
That one is one of my favorites. But on that topic of cosplay, TaLynn, I know that you've been cosplaying for a long time. Can you talk a little bit about how cosplay has evolved in your life as a creative outlet?
Woo. Okay. So, initially it was just, it looked like something fun to do, right? Like people were doing it. And we're talking a long time ago. I mean, I started 2005, no,
Okay.
15, 16, 2004, something like that. And so it wasn't how it is now. It like social media didn't exist then.
Right.
So there wasn't the online
But
presence as
MySpace
much.
was around, and we had blingies. Talon's face. That's all she needed to. She didn't need to say anything. She just said everything with her face.
Now
Yeah, I
that
did.
seems thoroughly derailed. Please continue.
But like how Instagram is now, and people can now become influencers and stuff and build these huge
Mhm.
followings and then start actually like making money doing all that stuff. And so it becomes like this like job type thing to do
Yeah.
that and create this content. Content creation wasn't a viable
Mhm.
occupation at that time. So we just dressed up and went out, and people would take our pictures, and if we wanted to find them, we had to find, because Dragon Con would post a list of all the people who basically posted their photo galleries, submitted their photo galleries to them, and you
Yeah.
go hunt through all of them to see if they had any pictures of you. And no
Mhm.
one had names, no one had cards, no one knew anybody. And
Mhm.
then it became like you started seeing the cosplay websites where they would have the photo galleries from different events, and they started getting really popular. And then online magazines were having cosplay galleries. And so it became this thing where they wanted pictures of people who looked like the characters, which wasn't as big a deal before because there was no like notoriety, not notoriety, but like internet notice for doing
Right.
that.
Right.
So you saw the scene shift from anybody's doing this to no, you have to look like this and have this body type, and it
Mhm.
has to be more correct. There has to be perfect, exactly like the comic kind of things start happening. And so you saw a lot of people who were already doing it kind of get marginalized by the
Mhm.
popularity of it. And so that
Mhm.
became a thing. I had a whole existential crisis behind that and said, I'm never doing this shit again.
Mhm.
um and then I was like, but why? I like creating it. I like going out. I like interacting with people in it. So I had to have a whole come to Jesus meeting with myself that
Yeah.
lasted actually a couple years.
Mhm.
And I said, I'm gonna keep doing this, but I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it. And so it just
Good.
changed
Good.
my focus. And now I guess it ended up being like this super liberating thing of, oh wow, I actually like looking at myself. I like people looking at me. And so I'm gonna do this thing and really enjoy the attention, which for
Mhm.
some reason felt incredibly like narcissistic before. And I don't know why that felt narcissistic. So it's a weird space. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I feel about it. I just know it makes me happy. So
I
Yeah.
know for me, as far as that whole liking people, liking attention, and liking the way you look thing, feeling narcissistic, I'm very familiar with that feeling, and I'm working through that process. I'm not even as far along as you are, but I think, at least for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but I think the reason why I feel like it's narcissistic is because the spectrum has shifted in my mind, that normal and reasonable is kind of feeling slightly negative towards how I present and look, and being confident and feeling good about it seems like more than I should have. So I think that's how I kind of interpret it. And I feel like that's like a skewed view of it. Like, the middle is a good, self-positive image of yourself. And maybe extreme on the other side is, like being, into yourself so much that you think you're better than people. Then that's like a real kind of narcissistic thing. But for me, I just need to shift it a little bit better and it'll be on track.
Yeah, and I actually can agree with that to a certain extent. Like, for me, it was like, I used to do cosplay too. And for me, it was like, I enjoyed the attention, but at the same time, like, part of it was also just making other people happy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would cosplay as like Molly Weasley and stuff like that, and Alan and I would do Arthur and Molly Weasley, and we would go to like Harry Potter openings and all that sort of stuff. Shame we don't know who wrote those books. But
It was Hatsune.
was it Hatsune
Hatsune
Miku?
Miku.
Okay, cool.
Also made Minecraft.
Okay,
Also.
okay, cool. That's great. But, We used to go to the openings and like paint faces and stuff like that. And kids would run up to us and be like, Molly or Mom and stuff like that. And they just got so into it. So like it's, for lack of a better word, it's like almost like the Disney princess effect where you are that person to other
Right,
people.
exactly.
Excited to see you. And like, for me, it was like, I enjoyed the attention, but I enjoyed seeing the happiness other people got from it. If that made any sense?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that totally is like, I remember, surprisingly enough, this last year was my first time like legitimately cosplaying. I've always, like growing up, there was like it was like a point of contention in my family a little bit. And as I got older, I was kind of nervous about it and kind of scared to do these projects or these costumes. And last year, so I went as, one day I went as the Happy Mask Salesman, and because he's like one of my favorite characters from the Zelda series. And then I went as Canary from Hunter x Hunter, if you guys are familiar with her. And having people be like, oh my gosh, Canary, and call you like Canary, and then you have to turn around and take this picture. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. So I definitely know what you mean. Like just seeing people get excited about your character and stuff like that and wanting to take your picture. It feels good for yourself, but also just seeing them light up and get excited is really nice too.
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, you're making me miss cons even more.
Sorry, Havana.
Also, I did want to reference one essay you did, TaLynn, where I was like, this is so true. I've never heard anyone else articulate this. But like Halloween costuming versus cosplay, two very different things.
Yeah.
And it was just like, when you wrote that essay, TaLynn, I was like, this makes sense, because I remember like trying to dress up as like Kylo Ren or like trying to dress up as like characters during Halloween. And it was just like, this feels different.
People treat you, it's weird. Like you get a completely different reaction. It's different from the fan reaction. The fan reaction, the people who really enjoy it, they treat you like, oh, we love the fact that you were engaged in the content like we are. I mean, you're doing a different thing, but this is cool. You come out in Halloween, they're like, where's your tits?
Right. It's almost like people have a weird reaction if you put too much effort.
That too.
I was just gonna say that, like, you have to participate, but you have to have like a certain amount of generic to what you do and a certain amount of distance and emotional distance from it. Like, you don't really care about it. You're just ironically taking part of it. And it's like, you're not allowed to be enthusiastic and passionate and delve into what you're doing. And that's just so bad.
I mean, well, it's not cool to care about shit. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You're supposed to be nonchalant about everything, and
exactly.
if you really into your cosplay, then you're not nonchalant. You're automatically a dork. So
yeah.
Right. It was a bizarre dichotomy there. My next question is for Angael. Okay, so you're super prolific. Like, you work on a lot of anthologies. Your art's like everywhere. You also sell art and showcase them at conventions. And you have such, like, I love your style because it's so unique and identifiable. How did your style evolve? Like, how did you come to find your artistic style?
Oh my gosh, like, it's funny because that's a question that I would always ask, like, my favorite artists, like, how did you come to that? And now I understand what they meant by, like, I didn't. You just kind of draw and you see stuff that you like and you're like, oh, I'm gonna like be influenced by this, incorporate certain things, like for instance, one of my my favorite artists is Ben Fouquet. He's a French artist, and he worked on the recent game, the Streets of Rage 4. And I love his art. I have some of his books. I can't read them because I can't read French, but I don't care. And I just love his color, but I love his line work. And I try to study it, and I try to kind of see how I can take what he does and bring it into my art. And I think that over the years, being in inspired by different things and influenced, like, you know, French BD comics and, you know, like Disney from a long time ago, anime, all of those things have influenced me. And I've kind of just end up bringing my own thing to it. And like, as you try to get better and better at what you do, it starts to kind of coalesce, is that the right word? It just all kind of comes together into something that people start to recognize, even if you don't, because like that's something that I've always struggled with. Like, I don't have a style. I feel like I'm all over the place. I draw different things. And so recently I've started to kind of see it, but you know, honestly, hearing you ask me that question is kind of making me feel better. It's like, oh, I do I'm having recognized self. Yes, finally, you know. So that's how I look at it. And so that's really great that people starting to see I have some kind of style, even if I have trouble seeing it sometimes.
Yeah. And I know, TaLynn, you were the one who suggested, like, you're the one who asked for Angael to be the artist on Coyote Run. What about her art kind of stood out to you?
I'm not an artist like y'all. Like, see stuff and I'm like, that looks good. That's nice. That's clean. That looks really clean. I like the colors they're doing. I like the way, and it's really funny because I've been looking at a lot of people's Kickstarters, and there's actually, and this is among the Black creators that I've seen, there's a real difference in what kind of art styles people choose. And I mean, there's a masculine version and a feminine version, which you wouldn't think would be the case, but for some reason, like, they like a whole lot of wrinkles on their characters and like real narrow faces, and there's not a lot of roundness to anything that they're doing. It's very sharp, and I really think it looks dirty, and maybe that's what they like. And I like stuff that looks clean and kind of a little soft and kind of rounded, but also still has an edge to it. So and I like vivid colors, and so that's I guess that's what drew me. Okay, we got there.
Sure. No, I think that's an interesting answer, because you do get this like gritty comic book style. And like, I just love Angael's work, so I'm excited to see it come together. And speaking of which, you two are collaborators on the upcoming short story Coyote Run. So for viewers and listeners who aren't familiar, can you both, or actually I'll point it to TaLynn. Can you tell us a little bit about what Coyote Run is?
So all right, so it's it's I was allowed to write for one of the characters in the Kamikaze series. I got to choose which one. Um, and for some reason, when I read, you know, the webcomic, I was really drawn to Rio, who is, call her Coyote, but she basically deals in illegal immigration. And I was like, I like the fact that the way she had been portrayed up to that point was somebody who you could tell was kind of altruistic, that they actually had a moral code, but they were also living in the reality of what it was to do this type of work. And that reality does not match up with the idealism that you have at all, but she was still choosing to do that. And she really appealed to me because a lot of times, like, especially when I'm really heavily doing a lot of social justice stuff, I feel like I have to do it. I feel like if I don't do it, nobody's going to say the types of things that I'm going to say. And I feel like I kind of have to. But then, and when I originally started this story, I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to. But I had a darker ending in mind. And then I sat back and said, you know what? I'm really tired of writing these stories where people are sacrificed for their causes. And is there a way that we can step away from that? Because that's not the reality I want to see. That's not the reality I want to live. And, you know, in a lot of ways for me, you know, I feel like I'm pushed into that direction. So part of my whole development, especially right now, is recognizing that I'm not here to be in service to people, but I can choose to serve when I want to. And so trying to be, you know, that's kind of what ended up happening with this story. It was like centering that kind of message in it, as opposed to, you know, the whole, oh, we're going to do it till we die or it kills
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
I love that. Yeah, that's a really fascinating um It's a really fascinating thought process through the creative process for the story. Yeah, it's so like I guess without giving away too much, is there anything you're particularly proud of when it comes to Coyote Run? And this is a question for both of y'all.
That I did it. You know how hard it is for me to write fiction? I fail at this shit all the time. I've been failing at this for years. Honestly, decades now.
Wow.
So I have one that I finished. Hey, I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Angael?
Well, I will say that just being inspired with Carrie and her walking me through and making the certain changes, I've kind of had to challenge myself in the way that I've portrayed certain things, and that was really something that I was proud of. But like you, TaLynn, I feel like I'm very proud of the fact that it's all coming together and that it's something that I'm able to accomplish, because I know that all of us have experienced a lot of things over the last couple of years, months. It feels like years. Oh my gosh. But over the last couple of months with, the pandemic happening and just kind of throwing our lives up in order. And I know with the George Floyd thing, a lot of people were reeling. I know the Black community was reeling. And those things, coupled with a lot of things that were going on in my personal life, it has been a very, very, very hard time for not only myself, but I know lots of different people. And so if I'm totally honest, and I know Carrie has been with me this entire time and she's been so wonderful, I love her to death, it has been a very difficult process, even to, remain focused and work on everything that I need to accomplish. And if I did not have the support that I have from my editorial teams and my husband and friends, I'm not even sure how much of all of these projects that I could have finished. So just getting through and being able to take part of in this interview with a big smile on my face is just a really big thing that I'm very proud of right now, and in this project. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think even without the pandemic, you touched on something, TaLynn, and you as well, Angael, about how difficult it is to finish projects. I mean, I have Kamikaze, but behind Kamikaze is a whole graveyard of unfinished comics.
I feel like that's a great word.
Yeah, it's funny because people will ask me how you have a book, you have multiple books out, this is amazing, how did you get it done, how do you actually get something done? I never know what to tell them.
Right. I think I'm going to get my Twitter title so that it's no longer artist. It's creative project crypt keeper.
That's perfect.
It does feel that way. I know you mentioned support. What advice would you have for creatives who are kind of struggling, even outside the pandemic, to finish projects and see it to the end?
I'm still working on that, but I will give you some advice that has been given to me recently by people that I know care about me. Pace yourself.
Okay.
Don't push yourself harder than you can. Do what you can. Don't go to the point where you're breaking yourself in order to get things done. Do what you have to do, get your work in order, do it what you can, but don't hurt yourself. And that's a lot. And get rid of the kind of culture. I know we have an issue of burnout culture where it's kind of romanticized, oh, I didn't get any sleep, I got 2 hours of sleep and I drank 5 cups of coffee and I'm just running on fumes. It's fine. That's not a good way to think. So taking time when you need it, and not beating yourself up for when you need to take time off to kind of help yourself and work on your mental health or whatever it may be. being a lot kinder to yourself is a big thing. And especially nowadays, there's just this, you got to work, you got to hustle, you got to do this, you have to be better than everybody else. You have to get out more work than everybody else, or you don't mean anything. That's not a good way to go about things. And so that's what people have been telling me lately to kind of help me through these last couple months. And so I'm starting to soak it up, still working on it. But I think those are very valid pieces of advice. And I think that they have helped me over these last times, and will continue to help me in the future.
For me, a big part of it is that my financial survival is not based on my creative output.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
big
If
one.
it was different, I would have a completely different outlook on things. But I have, as much as I resented my day job before, I appreciate that shit now. Especially during this pandemic.
Mhm.
But yeah, that the fact that I don't have to worry about being able to afford health insurance and being able to get a paycheck if I don't create anything,
Mhm.
makes a big difference. And it's been really important this year. I mean, it's probably really important because I don't really make no money doing any of my creative shit. But other than that, it's been really important now because last year doing all the stuff I was running around and not really getting paid for, I burnt out and I crashed hard. I crashed in July. And
Yeah.
I still had shit until October.
Mhm.
You
Like,
were crazy last year. Like I mean, I follow your updates on Twitter and Patreon, and like you were doing a lot.
I was doing too much. I was doing too much. So as bad as this pandemic is, as much as I wish it hadn't happened, and I wish that, people weren't going through the things that they're going through, and we aren't losing all the people that we're losing, and all this unnecessary nonsense that is coming with it politically and socially and economically, all of that. I do appreciate the fact that it shut down everything. I miss cons, but at the same time, I don't think I would have been strong enough to say no, and
Mhm.
I still would have been pushing myself to go and do all of these things. And so I appreciate this time now because I've been forced to refocus on me and start really taking care of my physical health, which I've been
Mhm.
neglecting in a lot of ways. Like I was doing the bare minimum, and
Yeah.
now I can feel a difference in just how I feel generally. And so I appreciate that. But yeah, if I'm still like, oh my gosh, I need to keep the lights on, I need to get these pages done so I can get paid, that would be a whole different story. And I yeah, that to me, and mind you, I created my website, I do my writing, and I did it specifically so that I wouldn't have to answer to anybody, and I could create the stuff I want to create. That means that often I don't sell nothing, but I create what I want to create so I can still enjoy it.
Yeah. If I can kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, I just recently had a conversation about that. And actually, a while back, I was telling my dad, and I was so frustrated, and I was like, Dad, I don't even, there was a point a couple years back, I was like, I don't even love art anymore. Like, I know I'm not creative. I don't feel like anything is original. I get frustrated. I don't even want to draw. Like, what's going on? Like, he's like, you're stressed. You, all your art and your creativity, it's all towards trying to make money. Like, if it's monetized and you get sit down and you're just like, okay, let's be creative, you're like, I made this art, you can't make this art. You're like, how can I make this make money? How can I hustle this instead of being just creating for art, art for art's sake?
Create what
And
you
I
enjoy.
realized exactly, I really recently tried to start drawing a couple things for myself every here and there, and I'm working on my projects for myself, and it is kind of bringing back this love for art that I had lost for a really long time, just because it's not for anybody else. For me, I'm making it because that's who I am. That's what I do. I create instead of like, I just gotta make money, I need a job, and so I still have to do those things, but I try to specifically take time to do art for me, do art for the world, just because that's what I do. And so that really, really helps me keep going.
I absolutely feel that. Actually, that exact like feeling right there you were describing about, being in this hard place, um, not really like this whole idea of being stuck in a space of I have to draw in order to make money and therefore everything has to be monetized. Like Kamikaze in many cases was birthed from me trying to get away from that. Because I had like completely, I mean, Alan and Havana can attest of just like how bad it got, because I just kept saying, well, it has, you know, any project and anything I ever do and draw has to make money immediately. And if not, I'm a failure as an artist and all this sort of stuff. And it was sort of like,
Up ahead.
yeah. And then Kamikaze came along, and it was sort of like the one outlet that I, you know, with the support of Alan and Havana, I was able to say, okay, I can do this, and it doesn't have to make money, you know, immediately. It might not make money in the long run, who knows? But at the same time, this is something that I can pour my love into, and I can create knowing that, you know, this is something that, you know, in many cases represents the values and love that I have and that Havana has and that Alan has, and the things that we care about. And I was able to kind of
grow through it.
Yeah, and even grow through it. So I very, very much relate to that. And it is a very, very hard place to be for many cases. Like I say this quite a lot when I'm on panels, but Kamikaze literally saved my life. So like, and Havana and Alan along with it. So, you know, if you get to the point where you're just like, what's the point in doing this? You know, your self-worth is so tied to what you're creating. Maybe it's a moment that you need to stop and question and say, okay, why is this, you know, why is my self-worth only focused on what I can produce and not who I am?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think as creatives, it's hard because, like, you know, we grow up with these creative outlets being an escape. And once you start monetizing it, I mean, I had to break myself out of the whole, you know, how can I monetize my art? How can I, you know, make some side cash off of my art? And like, that was very damaging to me as a creative.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it really, I mean, as you said, it sucks the joy out of it.
Exactly.
So I think it's so important for all creatives to somehow like maintain that playfulness. Like there needs to be a piece of you creatively that remains just playful.
It's really hard though. And I'll take ownership of this. Like every time I start doing something, I really start looking at metrics. I start looking at how I can get things out and get in front of people. I start thinking, what can I get people to pay for? That kind of thing. And I've really, I've learned that when it's something that I really, really care about, that I think is really important to me, that I just set a boundary for myself and I say, if you want to give me money for doing this, you can, but you can't buy this from me. And you can't have any input on what I'm doing. And this isn't about you in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So if you want to support me, feel free, but this ain't for you. Like this
that's
is
great.
You're allowed to come with me on this journey, but this is my journey. And so, mind you, I will never make money. With this attitude, but I try to hold on to it because ultimately, you know, the money that I can make to survive, it doesn't have to come from the things that give me joy. It would be nice if you could find that balance and do that, but our society isn't set up for that. It's really set up to just drain you of everything until there's nothing left, and then it steps on your corpse and goes to find the next person who they can drain of everything until nothing's left. So
100%. Yeah. Sadly, that is the world we live in. And I know, TaLynn, you mentioned that this was your first fictional work, or one of the first?
It's the first one that I have finished and put out into the world, sort of.
Okay.
And it's actually my first like real big collaboration like this, actually.
Ooh.
I've never written a comic before. I told Carrie when she invited me to do it, I was like, you know, you're gonna have to teach me, right? Like,
It was great.
What was the experience like going from nonfiction to fiction and like collaborating?
you know what? It was painless.
Okay.
Well, okay, I lied.
Really? I don't. I remember sitting in a cafe and hearing you go.
Well, it was the technical parts of it. It was when we had after the story was written and we had to clean it up and then make it fit into the frames and the pages and stuff. I was like, well, fuck this. This is so not fun. Like, but up until that point, it was. I mean, there was a lot of self-doubt, but it was still like this cool thing of, oh wow, you're gonna let me just kind of write whatever and say whatever, and then I had to come back and I'm like, you need to give me a little bit more backstory, at least what's going to happen to Rio next in the story, because I'm making decisions for her. And I know if I'm gonna interrupt something that you guys have planned out. So that was kind of cool, and it was a challenge. I enjoy challenges. Anybody who's ever listened to me chronicle some of the stuff that I create when I cosplay, I make the situation as difficult as possible for no fucking reason. Like zero. I decided to make some wings. I was like, I'm not buying any materials that they say you can use for wings. I'm going to scrounge up what I got in the house, and we want to see if we can make this happen. And I kind of did. I fucked them up. But, I enjoyed that challenge of trying to see if I could make it come to fruition. So I'm going to edit it and make it better. But, yeah, I like doing it in a way where I have to learn or really be creative about how I'm thinking about things in order to make it happen. So this was kind of another experience like that. I had certain parameters that I had to work in, and the deadline helped a lot. Even though you were fluid on it, Carrie, it was still kind of a deadline. I was like, this is good. And the accountability helped a lot too. So if you ever want somebody else to write another story or some shit, feel free to hit me up because this worked for me.
Awesome.
Yay!
We're gonna hold you to that.
Yeah, we're gonna hold you to that.
Angael, what was it like translating the world of Kamikaze into your own style? Did you find any challenges?
I definitely found challenges because, like TaLynn said, my style and my type of stories that I generally write are not as gritty as Kamikaze and Coyote Run was. So I really had to stay mindful. Like Rio's character, she's an older woman. She has a little bit of angularness to her. She's a rugged, like you said, altruistic and, a caring person, but, hard, shell. And so I had to bring that into the character, the world, trying to create it, that grungy look on the world. All those things were things that I had not really, had a lot of practice with or been exposed to, in my art. And so that was kind of a challenge. But overall, I think that I managed to be successful in a lot of those areas. And I feel like I'm growing as an artist because of this piece. Awesome. And so, so I think that
I will like, it's interesting because TaLynn recommended you as the artist, and my first reaction was like, I love her art, but wait, is this for the same story?
That's what I liked about it. I was like, okay, I love doing juxtapositions. I love anytime, like when you look at like even characters I do, and sometimes photo shoots I'll take a character who is either really, really hard and put them in a really soft light, or I'll take somebody who's really, really soft and then make it look real dangerous. So I love the fact that it was bringing this kind of softness into this gritty story that it doesn't go together, but it does go together because, I mean, we have an impression of how it's supposed to be, but how many of us are really exactly what people assume we're going to be, So it's just adds this other kind of depth to it. So I like your art for that reason.
Well, hearing that makes me feel a lot better because I know through the process I was like, do they know who they chose?
Yes.
Well, I think that's also part of the purpose of what a lot of the short circuits and anthology pieces that we're doing is that we want to see other people's interpretations of the world, and that it might not be exactly what everybody exposes, and honestly that's refreshing.
No, I love it. I love it because when I had that first reaction, I was a little concerned, but then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just trust TaLynn. Like, She's got a vision. I trust it. Just go for it. Green light.
Well, thank you.
But, okay, in all fairness, the way I pick artists, because I work with a lot of artists I have them like draw me in cosplay and stuff. And the way I prefer to work with artists is I'm going to give you some reference pictures, do it in your own style.
Yeah.
I picked you because I like your style. Do it your way. You know,
Right.
if there's something I'm like, oh, I don't like the pose, or I want to change the background or color or something that's different. But mostly, I chose you because I enjoy what you do and I want to see how you translate it.
Mhm.
So I want
You're
to
a
see it in
dream
your
client.
language.
I wish all clients were like
Yeah, I know. It's like I don't like it's so hard because for me, I know like when I try to draw in styles that aren't mine, like I have a really
people.
like I know that my stuff is that's just what I do. Like, and so when I'm pushed to draw in a way that I don't draw, not like I'm not as confident as it when I do it, and it shows. It not just because I don't have the skill of doing it in that way. Like if someone had like a really really realistic style, that's not my forte, and so it's gonna show. My not being confident in it's gonna show, and it doesn't really serve anybody. And I've always been really confused if someone will look at my stuff and be like, hey, I'm gonna have you draw Watchmen, and I'm just like, no, why?
I would love to see your version of Watchmen. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm like, I want to see your version.
I'm just like, sure, but if you want Batman to look like Steven Universe, that's fine. But
I mean, I might say harden up a little bit, but overall, do your thing.
that's an exaggeration. But basically, you know, like I just I do like pushing myself sometimes and trying different styles, but at the same time, I know my limits. I know how I draw, and sometimes like people really want something that's almost opposite, and I don't really think that's fair to the artist. Like I'm like, if you wanted that style, find an artist that does that style.
Exactly.
And so I do appreciate the leeway and the experimental heart that you went after this for. So it does make me feel a lot better and more confident in what I've created, because I know that it's not the same world that's in the Kamikaze books, the Kamikaze webcomic, but it's still like I still feel like I was true to myself, but also true to the characters in a way that I could perceive them, you know, if that makes any sense.
No,
No,
I think it does.
Yeah.
I just wanted to put out there, like, again, as an editor, like there have been points where I have had to say, okay, you need to harden this up or you need to do this, but at the same time, Angael has like come to the table every single time and done exactly what was needed and necessary, but also stay true to who she is as an artist. And I respect that. And I think, like, again, to sort of reiterate, that is the whole point of, sorry, our dog agrees too.
Thanks.
I knew this was gonna happen. That was like, I think it's one of the things that makes the Short Circuit Anthology really, really interesting, and all of our like wall tale stories interesting, is that we're seeing the world through somebody else's eyes, not only through the character iterations. Alan, I'm trying to be serious.
Yeah. Proceed.
Aww.
We just broke Angael.
Like, you guys, I can't explain to you how badly I want a dog right now. Which actually, I know we've been talking about, you know, like doing what you love as opposed to like monetizing everything. And I am in such a fortunate situation at the moment where, you know, I'm married and my husband has a lot more stable job than I do. And after these last couple of months, he's kind of seen how, if I'm being honest, my mental health has kind of not been where I would like it to be. And it's been a very, very difficult time where I haven't been able to, in my heart and in my mind, be where I feel I should be. And he's seen that, and he's seen my struggles, and he's like, Angael, take a break, work on Star Fallen. And that's my story, my baby. And so after I finish up a couple of the projects that I'm working on right now, I will be taking kind of a hiatus to just do art for myself and kind of get my mind back in a really good place. And I'm really looking forward to that. And so, yeah.
So needed. And actually, it's a great segue into my one of the last questions. What does self-care and self-kindness look like to you in 2020?
I love both their faces right now. They're just like, ooh.
What
Okay,
does
so
that
I know, because this is something that I'm actively practicing, and I've really had to change a lot of the ways that I've interacted with myself and with the world. And so I mentioned before, I had been really ignoring my physical health for a really long time. And so when I get really stressed out, that shit manifests physically in me. And I ended up having, like, I get my stomach gets upset, and I mean, I've had my stomach be upset for weeks at a time.
Yeah.
I developed like sciatica, which I don't know if you've ever had that before, but that shit is a special kind of hell. Like you stop sleeping because you can't. Basically, you have to resolve yourself to being in a lot of pain all the time, and you try to find positions where you're in a little bit less pain, but that's it. That's as good as it gets until it resolves, and it just takes time for it to happen. I know all of it had been an accumulation of stress and me not taking care of myself, and part of doing I do all these selfies now and I do these photo shoots and I feel real awkward even saying this, but I started an OnlyFans so I could have a paywall between me and the fat phobic people who would just rip on my pictures just because they could. And I've been using that to kind of just enjoy me and just enjoy my body, even how I'm moving. So I'm like dancing more, I'm moving around more, I feel so much better. I put my socks on and it didn't hurt, and I'm mad that that was actually ever a fucking issue. So,
What you
like,
mean?
like I couldn't put my socks on. Like in June, I could not put my socks on. My husband had to put my socks on me. I was like, I can't bend over. I tried to get out of the bed and I stood up and I started crying. Like I never experienced anything like that. So to be from that to where I am now, and even knowing like this month has been extremely stressful, and yet I still, because I'm taking care of myself better, and that means that it's no longer I wait until stuff hurts for me to pay attention to it. It means actually doing stuff that feels good to me before I have to, which is
Right.
such a weird thing. But like I have a therapist, and I was talking to her and I said, the only time I pay attention to my body is when I'm in pain.
Right.
Other than that, I ignore it. And and that I got like it was so like not shocking, but just depressing to realize that I was like, I have to change this completely. I have to start doing stuff that feels good to me. So now I'm pursuing pleasure in all of its forms. And know it sounds jacked up because we were in a weird society that glorifies violence and actually shames pleasure, but I am pursuing it. And it's made a radical change in even how I just think about waking up in the morning. So that's my version right now.
I feel like for me, a while back, I know like self-care became a word, like a buzzword. And for a long time, I thought that self-care meant, taking bubble baths and things like that. So I tried taking bubble baths and using my bath bombs and this, that, and the other. And it wasn't really working. And I was just like, why is this not working? And they're like, honey, that's because it's not really self-care. That's pampering. That's what that is. That's not self-care. And realizing self-care meant, doing right by your body, like you said, getting ample sleep, saying no, like all of those things are self-care. Like, cause like I've always I've never been like a nervous person, but I've had like over the last 6 months, I've had such anxiety. I've never experienced anxiety like this before. Like my chest will get so tight where, it kind of feels like you can't breathe. And all of those things, saying no, like I got like addicted to Facebook, like scrolling through that and all this stuff, and you're absorbing all of this negative information, this inflammatory posts and stuff, not just like news about wanting to know what's going on, but people getting enraged, and you're soaking up and absorbing all this negativity, and it's just overwhelming, and you have to be able to say, no, that's not good for me. I need to stop. And that's something that I've always had a problem with. And so being able to say no, being able to step back, being able to look at my health and be like, hey, you need to do this better for yourself. Otherwise, it's going to affect you in the long run. All of those kinds of things are kind of what self-help or self-care means to me now. So yeah, it's kind of really similar to what you were saying, just taking care of yourself in a way that's impactful to your mind and your body, as opposed to just, taking a bath.
And appreciating your body. Like, so
Yes.
this is the thing that I had to, so I used to do Weight Watchers like a decade ago, and I did it the bad way. Where, I mean, you follow the program, but you look at eating as this weird kind of torture punishment thing. You're forcing yourself to exercise all the time because you have to, and but it doesn't feel good, and so you're not doing things that make you feel good. And like, there are, and I would force myself, and this is something I'm still like training myself out of. Like, so I have, my knees started giving me problems, but I was like, it doesn't matter if my knees hurt, I still got to walk this far and this long. And then it was like, but why are you doing it? There's other things you could do, and it won't necessarily feel like this, because afterwards my knees would light up, I'd have trouble walking the next day, it would just be this whole downward spiral.
Exactly.
So finding out what that is and giving yourself the space, stop telling yourself you have to do it every day or every other day or every week or whatever. You give yourself the space to figure out what is it that you enjoy doing, and then let yourself want to do it. Like, it's, but it's so counterintuitive to how we're conditioned that, yeah, it's been a radical thing. Like,
Yeah, I feel like we glorify pain.
we do.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Pain and violence. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And we shame pleasure.
Yeah.
Shame
Like, oh my gosh, yes. I just had this conversation with my husband talking about like I'm always doing the most. Like like we have to exercise, we have to eat. I'm doing this thing. He's like, stop. You're gonna hurt yourself. Why hurt yourself? Just do what you need to do. And I feel like I've kind of had this mantra in my mind that, like, if you're not going past your limits, if you're not, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but I'm like, if you're not hurting yourself, you're not successful. You're not doing
it's that whole idea of no pain, no gain.
yeah, exactly. No pain, no gain. Like, even if you get gains, you're like, that's not really gains. Even if it's gains, like, no, gains are when you're in pain. That's what it is, And so I'm trying to get away from that. Even like I said, it's not just my art. It's in my physical body. It's mentally. Like, I'm one of those people, like, where if I have to set a goal that's super ambitious, super high, to the point where I can barely attain it. And if I don't attain it, I treat it like I had a low goal and didn't, receive it. And it's very like this very punishing type of way to treat yourself. And I don't know if it's a mixture of just the society that they come in, that you have to drag everything out of you in order to, have a positive outlook, or like, I don't know, but I just know that it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's kind of toxic. And we just have to really take time and really, really intentionally change our minds and change our views and change the dialogue that's going on in our head that tells us to kind of do things that are detrimental in order to please whom? The world, the society that says you have to do this. Why? What are you doing? You're not giving me what I need. You're not providing for me. I have to do those things for myself. And at the end of the day, if something bad happens to me, if I end up in the hospital, if I end up depressed, if I end up dead, like, the world is going to move on. So you have to look after yourself and do what is necessary for you live a proper, prosperous and passionate and happy life for yourself. And I think, I feel like that's something that all of us, including myself, are trying to learn and live out daily.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I will add, like, there's even another layer with this pandemic, something that I've had to start telling myself and tell you, Carrie, is that we're living in a pandemic. No one, it would be preposterous to expect you to be operating like at your best right now, because the
Carrie's
world,
telling me that all the time too.
like, no one is expecting you to be at like your top of your game, you know?
Okay, this is true because like my husband is always telling me that too. Like everybody's like, stop it. Like, and it's so worse. It's like people who like already have like this idea that they need to be like at the very top, and then everybody shifted down, and then it feels that much worse. And they're like, stop doing that to yourself.
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
have
God.
to tell myself that like almost every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's one of the things that's been actually really bothering me lately is like, you know, just I'm seeing a lot, I'm getting a lot of this from various like places, but you know, it's sort of like, well, wow, now you have all this time to do things that you want, and you have all this time to work out and make yourself better. And it's sort of like, look, the only thing I want to do is drink a margarita and eat brownies and maybe watch Netflix. Like that is where my headspace is, because the world is on fire and I can do nothing.
Yes, exactly.
And it's sort of like, why are you expecting me to do the most when our world is at the worst?
Because like you said,
Anyone
people
to do that.
like TaLynn said, like the world values violence and pain over pleasure. Like if you have a moment to yourself, you don't deserve to have that moment to yourself. You need to be doing something productive. Be productive. It's like,
I mean, think about when you were in school. Think about when you were working at a job and you have that boss that you finished all your work and your boss is like, "What are you doing? We don't pay you to do nothing. We're going to come up with something for you to do." And you're just like, "Are you serious right now?
Yeah.
Like you paid me to do A, B, C, D, and E, and I did A, B, C, D, and E, and you mad that I did it?"
exactly. I think I read this article that was talking about that's why people drag their feet and don't do their work, because you're just going to make them do more work without compensation.
Yep.
And that's so unfair.
I'm just like, it's just goofy. So that we do have that space. I mean, that is literally a product of this society. This is capitalism. This is capitalism at work, and it's terrible. We are expendable commodities in capitalism, and so they just churn through us, because there's a never-ending supply in their minds of people who need jobs. And so it's hard. Our society doesn't support it. Our society is very, very, very much about you being functional until you're not, and then you're done. You're gone. You're disposable. No one needs you anymore. So
I love, your statement about just bringing it back to cosplay, like cosplay as resistance, and like finding joy. Yeah, like finding joy can be resistance too. Like it's so I always found that point like very poignant in your work.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. Like the idea of pleasure as resistance. Like just be happy. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you feel good. And that's fighting against the world that says, do what makes you feel bad to be beneficial to everybody else.
like how jacked up is it that that's our message? Like loving yourself is resistance. What? Like taking care of yourself.
Where did it get to this point?
Like that's fighting society. What?
It's really, really weird, because there's like currently with my little brother, he's living with us during COVID because his college is crazy.
His college is NC State.
His college is NC State.
That thing is spiraling down.
Oh God, the spiral. Yeah, the spiral is bad there. Anyway, but one of the things that I'm noticing with him is that there's a lot of, like, especially in my family, there's like a lot of this toxic shit that I had to unlearn really, 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 over a very long time. And I'm hearing some of it coming out of him, and I'm just like, okay, this is COVID. This is not, you're not going to be doing the best that you possibly could ever do. And he's like, oh, I should do this and I should do that. And I'm like, just do your homework. Like, do your homework and play your guitar and let's go for a walk. Like, that's all I want you to do. That's all anybody is expecting of you. Don't expect all this other shit to go on. And
if you wanted, you could do it.
You could do it, but you don't have to. And there's this strange thing, like, again, you know, that sort of idea of like, oh, you've already done all these things, well, now you need to do other things. It's like he'll come to us because he's bored, because he doesn't have more stuff to do. But I'm like, you finished your homework, go play. Like, and it's so weird to tell a 19-year-old you're allowed to play. Like, it's just so strange. Because I even had to relearn the idea that play was a thing.
Yeah.
Like adults need to play too, and just like that whole idea of our brains, like that doesn't leave when we turn, you know, 15. You know, it has to be there in other ways. And like, I think it's interesting how so many people see the idea of play, which is necessary for not only cognitive development but also cognitive function, is something that you stop doing.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
If it's fun, it's not productive.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something I've heard so much. Like, you just want to have fun, and it's like,
Yeah.
Like, it was something like I remember my husband saying that, you know, he wants to have fun, and a lot of times when he used to say that, I used to be so confused at that. I'm just like, but why? But I realized, because like you said, like the idea of fun and play has been pushed into us that at a certain age, that's not something you do. That's not adult. You know, you don't play, you don't have fun, you do things, you have recreational activities, but they're, you know, but only a little bit, because you have to be productive most of the time. And I'm learning now to just enjoy things and not punish myself for enjoying things, even if they're things that are not normally adult, you know, like Animal Crossing. We'll do that. Like, I love that game. I love that game so much. And so I can't hide myself and be like ashamed of it, or like I tell everybody, and I don't have to pretend like that it doesn't give me pleasure, and I don't have to hide or only do it a little bit of time. I do what I want, because, you know, it's so funny, because like when you're a little kid, you're an adult, and then you're like, when I'm an adult, I can do what I want. And awkwardly enough, sometimes we forget that. Like, we said it kind of defiantly when we were little, but now it's like, yes, you can do what you want, and adults can't tell you what to do. And that means they can't make you, you know, upset. They can't make you not do the things that you love, because I remember some things sometimes in my family, the way you present yourself to the world, what people think was kind of a big thing. And then it's like, what does it matter what other people think? Like, they're not going to change my life. Like, some people, yeah, they might look at you in a negative light, but okay, that's nice. Just do what makes you happy. Do what is best for you. And that's something that I'm trying to learn. People around me are trying to like really push it, and I'm trying to, like I said, there's so many different things that we have to like kind of program ourselves, unlearn, like you were saying. There's so many things that all of us have to unlearn, and it's just a process that we go through to kind of make ourselves, you know, better and happier.
It would be irresponsible for me to not point out that, you know, there's going to be situations where you'll be punished for that because our society is horrible.
No, this is true.
So I'm just going to leave it there. I'm just going to put that there, just a caveat. But carry on, have fun.
Yeah.
Be responsible.
This is true. I'm just like, oh, do what you want. It's great.
I work in public health, so she just has to warn everyone.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been like one of my favorite interviews. I felt like it was very cathartic. So, but before we end, what are you working on? Is there anything you want to promote? And where can people find you online?
Well, for me, I'm currently the colorist on a comic, graphic novel called Isnana. Showtime. It's an ongoing comic, has a few novels ahead of it, but we're currently doing a Kickstarter that started on August 31st. So if you guys want to go over there, look up Isnana. It's like you can help support them and, you know, share. That would be really, really great. And right now, the only other thing that I'm really going to be focusing on in the time coming is my story called Starfallen, which I'll share like information on and art over the next like year. And so I'm really excited about it. It's making my heart bloom. You can find me at Star Jellygram, like everywhere, like Twitter and Instagram and whatever. If you come across Star Jelly or Star Jellygram, it'll be me.
And me, right now, a lot of my work is really internal facing. So it's more of a, if you want to watch my journey when I feel like talking about it, then you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook. It's TaLynn Kel. Same on Instagram. If you want something that's going to be a little bit more, how should I say, revealing, Patreon is going to be a little bit more emotionally revealing. OnlyFans is going to be a little bit more physically revealing.
Different flavors.
I mean, it's just depending on, but that if you want to kind of, support that, feel free. And that you'll get a little bit more behind the scenes and the journey and stuff. Patreon, I tend to share like art that I've commissioned from people while it's still in progress. And, I might write essays or train of thoughts that I may turn into an essay or not, and have that there, and then actually edit it and release it, or just release it. It really just depends on my mood. But I've been doing a lot of photo shoots. I literally have been doing like a photo shoot a week.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Recently you did this Elementals collab,
yes.
right?
That was Sierra Leone Cosplay. She came up with that. She said that she wanted to do elementals and talk about like African or Caribbean gods and so forth. And she asked me if I was working on anything. And interestingly enough, I have been working on fire fae kind of things. Like, so mythical creatures, cosplay, original characters. But for right now, the theme is fire. And I was working on a fire fairy or a fire dryad, depending on if I had the wings on or not. And so that was what I used for that. And it was cool. It was a cool concept. It was a lot of fun. It was a deadline, so I had to get them wings done. But yeah, and that's the kind of stuff I'll talk about. But everything I do where I have a public image, there'll be a slightly less closed image in the OnlyFans. And anything I do will probably have like a little bit of talking about it and behind the scenes as the creation of it or whatever on Patreon. So it's just a matter of how you want to engage.
Okay.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much. And I guess we'll catch you guys later for the next quarantine chat.
All right. Thank you for having us.
Love you.
Bye. Love you guys too. Bye.